for the last couple of shows, I've been the only one. But today, I want you to know that we have a rising young poet, and I'm going to bring him on right now because the way this thing works is you have to admit people. They can't just jump on, like I wish they could. But at any rate, I would like to have you meet a young poet and a lot of other things that I met in church, of all places. But I'll let him introduce himself and give you his name because I don't want to mispronounce his name. So here we go. Ah, the split screen. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right.
Can you hear me all right?
Perfect.
It's going off the sound card of the computer here. I hope this computer stays fine too. I'm trying to make sure it's charging, but it says it's half power. It should be fine. I picked up both your books at the bookstore.
I'll get out of here.
You're beyond
You
the
know what?
waters.
That I love that. I love that, and I so much appreciate it. But you know what? I I forgot to introduce the whole program. So for anybody who has happened onto it, we are what I'm saying formally celebrating new poets. It used to be celebrating new poets, but I kept getting people on that had other talents. So I thought we'd broaden it and call it uh, the new celebrating new poets. But at any rate, I would like to turn it over to my guest and let him tell you what he feels like he wants to do today.
Oh, hi, I'm Mike Wise. Pleasure meeting you at Unity of Phoenix the other Sunday. That was my first time visiting that church. I'm 33 or 43-year-old seed planted in Unity of Mesa. I've been raised there and rooted in all those Unity principles. Um, I guess from my experience in Unity as a child and growing up in Unity, I took the five principles of Unity and I boiled them down to a personal philosophy that I tattooed on my stomach. And it's called One Cause Now. It's like everything's of the same source essence. And then it's your knowledge of self or KOS, chaos, in the moment, now being the moment, one cause now. So like I've been trying to sort of create that as a personal mantra over the last maybe 25 years or so since I came up with that twist of the Unity principles. But yeah, I go to Unity every Sunday. I have for quite some time, and I've just recently ventured off to find a new course. And I've come across Unity Phoenix on the way to a Cardinals game last Sunday. I wanted to come see the new facility over there and see some familiar faces. I saw Kathy Kellogg there, and I was like, it's good to see some familiar faces, and just the space you guys have there is very inspiring. So I sat down and did what I normally do at church. I sat down and wrote. I've misplaced. I have these little books that I found at one of my works. I do work with setting up AV for like conference centers and doing lighting for concert stuff. I'm independent contractor, lots of different things. Tonight I'm actually painting live for a free concert at a Yucca Tap Room. It's one of the other businesses that I contract through is called Top Notch Pro Audio Video, and they're doing their Christmas
Is
party, but they're doing their Christmas party at an open facility. So we have couple funk bands coming
that in
through,
Phoenix?
couple hip hop acts. It'll be a really big show for free. It's over on Mill and Southern at Yucca
Oh,
Tap Room tonight. I think it opens at like 5 o'clock, I think, is an open mic, and then it goes into some musical acts that they've had performing. But I'm gonna be there to paint. I've can sort of show you a mock-up. I've been drawing on what I've been working on today, and I think I'm painting something like this. You can see that. Like a hand holding a rock and
oh
roll hand,
yeah.
holding the microphone,
I see
and
it
I'm going to
very well.
embellish on something simple like that so I can possibly finish it by the end of the night. But I've
Wow.
been going through today, drawing them up, coloring book pages, just of the things that are in the AV lifestyle. Like drew a turntable and a boombox and a microphone and a light. And my boss, I drew a picture of him. I hope it's flattering. Yeah, an iPad is such a versatile tool now for artists. Like you can do video to music to uh, drawing right on it even. So like I do a lot of my writing in my iPhone, but when I'm at church, just so people aren't like, why is he on his phone this whole time? I do analog method and I write it down in these. So I'll try to get like a page each Sunday just as a personal progression of practice. But I picked out a couple poems, not necessarily anything I wrote on Sunday, a couple things I wrote for church. I was really adamantly over the last maybe 4 or 5 years wanting Unity of Mesa to say, "You're our poet laureate." Like I wrote for a bunch of different things.
Ah, yes.
Essentially, I figured I was their poet laureate because they've asked me to write for events and stuff, but it's never been an officially deemed title. So it's something that I still sort of I want to have something published by Unity Publishing possibly. And so a lot of these poems are sort of based in that essence of the experience of what a Sunday is to me. Like when I'm going to church, I just sit there and absorb and listen and transmute a lot of the lessons into things that I've learned or things that I know. So I wrote a little introduction thing about talking about my life in Unity as a tree because of a quote I had read by Confucius. And he said, if you think in terms of a year, plant a seed. If you think in terms of 10 years, plant trees. And if you think in terms of 100 years, teach the people. So it's like, well, I sort of looked at my growth as being a seed planted in a really fertile garden that grew um, to find its path in that sort of seek for knowledge, tree of knowledge type concept that I became. But yeah, I'll read you this poem and see what you think. It's
Great.
called A Tree,
A
and
tree. Okay.
so it said a seed was grown in fertile soil, with light's lead a future shown through the toil. To survive with spirit, to achieve a breakthrough, alive in this moment, found in this unity new, whole and perfect, roots set aslant, a sole foundation to select a benefit to plant, knowing the divine excitement in this presence, sowing success with time spent in this essence, establishing a safe space, reaching for the sky, accomplishing alignment with grace despite the limitations, try to reach, to expand, branching out to find balance, to teach from this land one can sprout a strong stance, not swayed when the winds of change spiral, displayed resilient ends to arrange a strength vital, to protect this life force and pillar its design with a respect for nature's course as something divine. Now this trunk reaches with open arms, as legs sunk, the depth teaches a purpose to this farm, cultivating a desire and meeting the need, demonstrating naturally to inspire a soul to feed, providing security under a canopy of protection, sheltered from the catastrophe in union with a connection. The bliss of this practice is a garden, the moments exist and persist as the flow to pardon, the weather, whether the rain of nature, can rather supply a yield to gather as a creator. The cycle of the progress that life will produce, releasing in this process a weight once loose. In letting go, share the abundance in action, all the elements prepare this basket for collection. In this peace lived, present where planted it, giving perspective, found knowledge of the infinite. Yeah, I got to read that one in front of the congregation, so that I was rather proud of that.
Wow. That's my comment. Wow. I'm
Thank
just
you.
waiting for your next move there.
There's definitely a deep root that I feel because of growing up in Unity with an example like Joel Bear as like this this playful adult experience that I grew up around. Adults don't have to grow up; they can still play, and I knew that as a young age because my
Yeah.
minister was like putting a swing in the congregation and was enjoying the time he had there to play with the congregation and incite that sort of childlike wonder. So like I always had that sort of element to my curiosity. And it whether it's because I'm on the spectrum, I have Asperger's and ADHD, so it's like a constant you could think of it like a slideshow but it's going so fast, it's like a constant movie in my head. So it's like the pictures in my head sometimes can be very distracting, and I find poetry slows me down a lot. It slows me down um, to a place where I feel like I'm not the one writing a lot of the time. I feel like a conduit of sorts because when I read them back, I'm like, oh, it's interesting. Like I don't remember writing them some of the time, especially in church when I let myself feel that comfort of that space. I can feel a lot more, not necessarily separated from the results, but uh like an assistant in the results and not the cause of the results, if that makes any sense.
That makes sense. I'd like to, we kind of I never know who's going to show up. I've had as many as six people on the show, and last time it was just me. But I always try to, if I can, pick up on what somebody else has done, even though that was a marvelous poem and
Thank you.
a bit more ambitious than mine. But I've got one that was also inspired by Unity. Um, it'll be a bit shorter, okay? But I call this Upon a Velvet Invitation. Upon a velvet invitation to go deeper into the silence of a silent prayer in church, I became a seasoned sprinter, exploding with a fury into the unforgiving matrix of distance over time. I became a pusher for a bobsled, churning madly for speed enough to jump into the missile and hurl me down the icy slope. I became the lost one who died upon the curve and floated in the black, feeling terror in my air. I became the found one, with solid chair beneath me, tooling with a quiet calmness into a void of peace. Oh,
Oh,
you have
beautiful.
a friend.
She came to encourage.
That's great.
Where do you think you're going though?
She's
I
a
feel I
wonderful.
felt the calmness as was right when I started petting her too. Calmness definitely sunk in at the same time. I feel a deep calmness in your poetry as well. Yeah, some of the lyric or the word in your poem, I have to look up a couple of the words. I like writing that challenges my. Oh, come back over here, kitty. I like poetry that challenges my vocabulary, or anything that challenges my vocabulary. I feel that a lot of poetry is written about that desire to seek an equilibrium. So I find I write a lot more when I'm frustrated. I don't know if you can relate to that.
Oh
When
yeah.
I'm struggling
Oh
is
yeah.
when I really turn to my lyric more than anything else. Like it's just something like a safe space to go back to. Yeah, that it's been a rough week, honestly, a rough couple of weeks. The last month has been heavy, so I found I write a lot. It's sad to say that sometimes struggling relationships can be way more inspiring than loving ones. Like the people that you find yourself in conflict with are often the reason to desire realignment, like to try to find a balance. So I put myself in situations where I don't always feel comfortable on purpose, just because I find that's a good way to sort of set my personal path through the chaos, like and find balance in it. So I'll go to things that are very trying for my sensory conditions, like heavily light, heavily sound, very distracting, lots of people. I don't always do well in those conditions if I'm having to be socializing amongst a big group, but if you put me on stage, it's a different situation because now it's like, look what I can do, and I'm the center of attention for a moment. Then gladly would
You
get
know,
off the
we
stage
share that. We
and
share.
disappear back into the crowd or
Yeah.
back behind a camera or something. But it is an interesting sort of superpower of language, being a poet of sorts. It's like you can say things that are sort of commonplace in a unique way. Then it's like other people may hear the words and not know what you wrote them about, but because of the way you wrote it in sort of a nondescript way.
You know, I love when new things happen that have never happened before, and this has never happened before. A person who's has so much to offer and is so willing to offer it, and I am so into it, and all of a sudden, I swear I'm not making this stuff up. Okay, okay, now it's just me. I tell you what, here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to read the next poem that I was planning to read. And if our friend comes back, then all will be well. And even if for some reason the technology is going to get us this time, I'm sure that you all would agree, just from this brief exposure, that this young man has a great deal to offer all of us. And I am certainly going to do everything I can do to get him back on the show. If for some reason he doesn't come back on himself. Like I said, I'm not the person to answer the question, well, what happened? I don't actually know. So in the interim, I'm going to read you a poem. That's what I do. So here we go. I call this one On That Day. On that day, it might help if I moved up to the special light that I've prepared so that I can read the words on the page. But we'll start all over again. The poem is called On That Day. On the day that I pass over, I will not rage against the dying of the light, but I do wonder what will happen, how it will feel, entering the void of peace. I cannot answer where I'm going. I might not recognize it when I get there, or remember that I've lived before. But on that day, I will know full well where I have been, how I have shown up. On that day, I will have no age, no limitations, no cares for tomorrow. On that day, I will be somebody's dad, somebody's grandfather, somebody's friend, somebody's lover, either past or in the wings, somebody's favorite poet. That would be my favorite, okay? On that day, I will be clothed in grace and loved by my Creator, the giver of all life, the author of my next chapter on that day. And I'm thinking that I will read a couple more poems. Now, of course, when you do these things, these podcasts, they have to be edited to be shared. And generally, what happens if things go poorly, that's a poor choice of words. If there is a glitch in what was to this point a lovely poem and a lovely young man and some terrific poetry and other talents that I definitely want to have back on the show. Um, I think that I definitely would like to give this young man some more airtime. In order to do that, I really sort of have to lengthen the program just a bit just in case somebody is saying, well, let me look at these two guys that look like they're doing something like some reading or some poetry or something like that. And if they should do that, they'll be very happy to meet the young man, and they'll get, if not exactly their money's worth, from me, at least I'll get a couple of extra poems that I have more or less prepared, and we can all call it square. And then I can invite you back to um, celebrating new poets, or as I am now calling it, formally celebrating new poets, because I want to celebrate all writers, any new writers, anybody who is just getting their feet wet, anybody who has published a great deal. It doesn't really matter. If you have something that you want to share and get some feedback on, this is the show for you. Okay? So that is my invitation for you to come back to celebrating new poets or new writers. And as I said, I can't help myself. I got to read you a couple more poems. I mean, come on. That's what I'm here for, right? Okay, here goes. Problem is, I gotta choose one of the ones that I picked out. You know what? I'd like to read my daughter's favorite poem. My daughter Brett has a favorite poem, and I do want to read that. And that seems to be on page 71. And oh, and by the way, this is my latest book of poetry, Coffee with the Bard, 2020 Blues. A lot of it was written during the pandemic, but I still think you'd like it. Anyway, I'm on my way to page 71, and I'm almost there. And ta-da! This is a short one, so you want to start listening quickly, or it'll be gone. Anyway, we call this one rings, okay? So you discern the age of a tree by counting its rings, right? And before Botox, we measured the age of a human being by its assortment of wrinkles. But have you ever heard a tree say, I wish I had fewer rings? I dare say not. Any self-respecting tree is proud of its rings. Bring them on, I've heard him say on a number of occasions. So be like a tree and be like me. Embrace your rings. How else will we know you're still alive? Ta-da! Okay. Well, to say I've got more would be sort of like, you think? Uh, if a person writes 3 books of poetry, you would imagine that at least 3 or 4 of them would be something he'd want to share with the public. Um, so I think what I'm going to do, since you've been very patient, if you're still here, I'm going to read one more, and then I think we'll call it a day. I'll give you a little bit of information so that if you did see this podcast, that you'll want to come back. And we do it every other Tuesday, excuse me, every other Tuesday. And I hope to see you on the new one. Okay, so here we go. My last poem of the day. I think I'll do morning exposure. I just like this one. And I like the picture that goes with it. So it gives me something to do to show my listening and there you go. I'm gonna get the hang of framing this stuff in a minute. But I call this one morning exposure. I am not a frog loving my comfy bath, boiling in your death pools because I don't know any better. I fear not the grim reaper, the midnight creeper, the heart monitor beeper, gone silent to proclaim my passing. Because my spirit is divine. I have no need to work for time according to divine decree. Turns out time works for me. I am in love with the English language, and I think she loves me back. Which begs the question in three-part harmony, what miracles shall we allow today? And I hope that you have allowed many miracles. Oh, okay. I see, yes. Oh, very good, very good. I'm expecting our guest to return. There he is.
Hey,
Hey, you came back.
yeah, I had to add the app to my iPad, and I was waiting to be accepted back into the conversation there.
You know what? I apologize because once I start reading, you have to look at the top of the screen, and you can miss it if you weren't really looking for it.
Yeah,
So
my
I
apologies. I had a feeling my laptop was having an issue. Like it hasn't been charging right. I need to get a new
I
laptop.
think I expected you somehow just to reappear, but it doesn't really work that way. It shows me at the very top of the screen that you're there and waiting to come back, and I have to press that. So,
Oh, no, no worries.
but you're here. So, and it's your turn.
Oh, awesome. Well,
I've been
then I'll be
holding down the fort since you've been gone.
spontaneous and open one of these books that says Unity on it. This says Unity 1 and 2. Okay, so that's a long day. Well, wait, well, let's try to say this without having proofread it. But I wrote this on October 13th, 2024. And yeah, it'll probably have a lot of little snippets from whatever the lesson was that day. I'll use words and things that they say in leading my mind to the next point of flow. So I'll try to read this. It is very sloppy. Very sloppy. It's written in the book, so this might be a slow read. I'll read this one to you and see what you think. Growing wallflowers, hanging around, harnessing our powers, producing sound. The ripple effect radiates a vibration of nature's perfect as it demonstrates creation. In the seeds we tend for the fruit it produces, abundance for our needs to extend life's uses, coming together for a cause as everything changes from our endeavor to pause to find an equal exchanges, giving from the heart, seeking a connection, in living where we start, choosing steps of our direction, to get here when aware of the space that we float, a path clear if we share the baggage that we tote, a mental distraction as thoughts will produce a conscious distraction. Oh, a mental abstraction as thoughts will produce a conscious distraction as attentions get loose, a runaway train of afterthought, regretful decay over pain of what's not, a stubborn persistence insists the goal to learn, and innocence in releasing control, to a nomadic soul wishing to be free, past where the dramatic toll are where these conflicts disagree. It's a breath that supports the life that we inhale in the depth that we must sort out why we fail to test resilience and train the skills to be our best within the silence that fills an empty cup till it runneth over. As earth erupts, we face our cover, the shell that cracks, the paradigm shifts, renewing our facts, questioning what if. Our perspective leads the way to the unknown as generosity gives today a value shown in the time that we spend to amount to something prime before the end count. The days are numbered, but who keeps track? Away we slumbered, instead sleeping to react, not making a choice. Indecision picks to muffle our voice and not in the stomach sick. As we contain the excrement, it stinks. Its divided brain laments on how it thinks. The pressure builds and the bottle pops. The script gets quilled from the bottom to the bottom from the top. Oh, it was a couple more. I guess another line that I wrote that maybe not at Unity, but the same day. Head in the clouds when on fire, bred out of a loud desire to be heard, speaking up, finding the words to say when is enough. It's all adding up to something, bringing peace when nothing comes to ring the bell to finish the match. So we sell short in a hole during a rough patch. Oh, that one wasn't finished. It has a line undone. The emperor has not the experience.
Oh my goodness.
The emperor has not the
So, you know,
experience.
I wanted to say a couple of things. One, you know, I've had discussions with people about the value of rhyme or not rhyme in poetry. But when someone chooses to rhyme, as you just did, and carries it through quite an epic of words, it gets to be really exciting. And
Thank you.
you know, I just I found myself, you know, just going along with it just a little bit more, and it's pretty impressive. Um,
Thank you.
I sometimes rhyme and sometimes don't, but I've never rhymed that many.
I've definitely found it as like I sort of started it as a game, and I'll even talk to my rapper friends about how I look at it, and some of them don't make sense of it because I'm looking at it from a poetry angle, and with my Asperger's brain wanting to figure out everything like computer pieces, I started writing and dashing the rhyme word in the line. So I would just write a line like created in the image of, and then I go through there like, where does it feel like the beat could hit, whether it's bar 1, 2, 3, or 4. I have 4 bars that I can play with in a pattern, 4/4 pattern. So like in that particular instance, I made created one of the rhyme words, I made image one of the rhyme words, and I made of one of the rhyme words. And I tried to get the next line to hit on each one of those rhyme words. So created rhymes with concentrated, mostly. Image rhymes with engage, sort of. And of is a harder one. So of does sort of rhyme with love. So like you're not necessarily looking for words that look like the same rhyme. I learned back out of high school about Sue Young made this book called The American Comprehensive Rhyming Dictionary. Highly recommended to anyone that writes poetry because of the way she describes how words work. And I think that's what it broke down in my brain was rhyming words start off of the vowel sound. So anytime you're trying to rhyme for a rhyming word, you can break down the first vowel sound in the letter, or, well, if that's too much of a rhyme, like waters could rhyme with otters or just ers. So that has 2 spaces within each word if it has more than one vowel sound, to where the rhyming could complement the word. So yeah, it's hard sometimes to say something and at the same time say something that also happens to include a rhyming word for saying the same thing. So I'll say things creatively where it became the whole vice of why I write. So I write poems poetically, I guess is what I'd say, but write them with that sort of nondescript meaning, never really saying exactly what I mean, but sort of letting things in the environment inspire the way that I'm expressing whatever I'm feeling. If that makes sense, like a different place definitely elicits different rhymes from me. See if I can find one I wrote at the football games. They come out as like sports rhymes. They come out talking about what's going on in front of me.
Now, if you'd had one about basketball, I would have been in hog heaven. I mean, it's like,
Yeah, I haven't gone to a basketball game in a while. Not opposed to it, but I attend the Cardinals games with my dad. We are season ticket holders, so that's been a fun adventure. The books just come along a lot since starting this habit. I've got books and books and books full of different rhymes that weren't all rhymes. These books that I have now, these are just rhymes. So I'll write, this side will generally be blank, but if I have an idea or a note I want to take, that's what this side's for. And then I try to fit it one line in a small amount of space. So sometimes it gets real sloppy. But what that keeps it is it makes me believe the lines are short. So then I'm trying to keep it within that one bar to keep my visual track of what line I'm on. But when I type it out, it obviously it has a lot more potential in the typing out of the presentation of the words in poetry. I find very fascinating. Some of the poetry books I've read where they actually have their words, like they're talking about falling waters and the words are sort of dripping, like stuff like that I find fascinating. And in those cases, generally may prefer it not to rhyme if it's like a short, like a haiku or something in a different style expressing something. I don't feel it always has to rhyme, but man, I definitely have got stuck on that. I definitely can't.
yeah.
I can't write them without
I
rhyme.
understand that. I can understand that. And, you know, rhythm has a lot to do with it. But there's so many, I don't know, technical aspects of poetry that I don't really get into talking about them too much. I studied them and I took tests over them and all that, but it's like, I just sort of go with my gut feeling on most things.
Yeah,
But
that's best.
I love rhyme, and I really I'm blown away by your poetry so far. It's just
Oh, thank you.
um, um, that's about I think that's it. Some things cannot be improved on. If I say I'm blown away by your poetry, that should be enough. That is definitely true,
Definitely
and I don't need to say any more. You know,
appreciate it.
so um,
Do you ever write poems that you want the crowd to like say something in participation of? Like I wrote one that actually, strangely enough, I wasn't at church to deliver it. I had somebody else deliver my poem because I was going to be out of town, but they asked me to write it for an event, and I wish I haven't gone back and found it yet to what it got delivered as, but I had this poem that was like, I called it I am, and then I wrote a bunch of things sort of like I am statements, but the statement was sort of, when they did it, I had them put I am before every statement, which I think
ah,
sort of slows it down. I think I actually group it together into the rhyme blocks, like two lines as an I am
mhm.
statement and then two lines as an I am statement. So it's sort of like a meditation, very much in the unity mind state. And I'll show you if you want to hear it here and see what
Oh, I'd
you
love
think.
to. I'd love to.
It's called I Am. So it starts by saying, I am birthed from a thought arising out of the quantum. Inside this vessel brought forth to sail towards an outcome. I am a flow of consciousness to experience the abundance, finding balance in the present tense as progress to enhance. I am the energy of this space, open to unfold the expansion from a resting state found pace in a field of possible action. I am liberated attitudes, setting the range to cultivate new allowing, focusing positive change as thoughts and feelings emerging now, vowing. I am mental rehearsal as visualization, stimulating a practice of creation, intensins routine expectation, harnessing a future sensation. I am associating a divine force as rhythm of our frequency, knowledge to soften the course, silencing the mind's emergency. I am redundancy of our patterns to serve as a piece in this universe, in order as the cycle turns, an awareness of the stream in which we immerse. I am a conduit to view the channel that empowers, laying the foundation through what we build to tower.
I love the energy. That is a really driving piece. You know, you have to have some energy for that.
Yeah,
Uh,
that one probably needs more energy than I gave it.
yeah, well,
Just,
I thought you did well, and I'm sure you could do more. But I love it. You know,
oh, thank you.
there to me, there's nothing more exciting than just feeling the growth of something and knowing that this is going to be an interesting this is going to be an interesting experience, you know, as a listener, and that means actually as much to me as just reading my own stuff and having somebody like it. You know, it's like actually being involved, and that's what your energy did. It drew me in, and I'm every bit as excited as you are in a certain way. Only I don't have to work. All I gotta do is listen. You know. So
Yeah, I hope to be able to translate that, or at least help myself to feel comfortable sharing that too, because that's not always the case. Like, it can be hard to. Some of these poems are really deep, and they're about things that, when I really think about them, they're hard to say. But if I
right,
just like almost go to another place where I'm like, almost like I felt when I wrote them, as if like they were being wrote through me. I almost have to like to present them. Sometimes I have to take that stance that this was just something I'm presenting, and take it as that, and not remember necessarily. I need the motion behind it, but not remember the some of the, maybe the conditions that created the transition, or whatever the poem is helping me deal with or get through. Sometimes it's a lot of questioning myself, as I find I do in my poems a lot. It's like trying to agree with. I play a hobo clown character, like a Charlie Chaplin character, and the whole guy is about the character is he doesn't talk. He makes noises, beatboxes, sort of chirps, and he's an example of like a more clowning version of an adult autistic, a nonverbal sort of character in a talking world. But you go inside and you can hear his thoughts sort of arguing out, like not necessarily like Daffy Duck and Donald Duck used to have angel and devil on your shoulder. In psychology, if the voices are coming from outside your head, you are insane. If the voices are inside our head, it's all what we do. We talk to ourselves, and that's not always nice. So I like to refer to it like the cheerleader and the bully. I call it love and fear. And those two voices are almost like a battle rap that's has spirit as like the referee, and the referee gets to really decide, like, well, both of you guys are being ridiculous, just stop it. Just stop it and be. And that's sort of the way that a lot of like the Buddhist texts talk about, is the way between the two counteracting forces. You don't actually try to control either one of them, you just observe. And that's that, like that path. So like I have a tattoo I'm gonna get of a logo, sort of looks like this. It's like it's a one wheel of sorts this way, but if you turn it this way, it's like a brain, two
okay,
halves of a brain with like a path through the center. So like a lot of my rhymes are almost like are going closer to that presentation, where I almost want to point counterpoint myself, like have the conversation to where it's not necessarily like defeating my fears, but it's like presenting a grand enough case to why some of these are ridiculous. And then it's like a debating. It's more debating anything, uh, like a drama student or something, trying to figure out that this is all big drama. This is all just emotions I'm creating inside of this, whatever this,
yeah.
whatever you want to call it, hologram of a world we live in, sort of thing. It is all of our thoughts. So like Unity teaches that, and it is hard to keep that reality in the real world, when the real world is not not necessarily presenting that truth to you at all times, that you are a creator of everything you believe, for good or bad. And that right there, for people that are like OCD, or more uh, like nervous and worrisome about things. It's like, if you truly do believe you create your reality, that can be a super scary thought. Like, there was a Twilight Zone episode about a kid that couldn't get magazines and stuff because anything he would see in the magazine, his thoughts would create in reality. And I was like, how scary would that really be if you knew that you could create
I
anything
think
you
I
could really
saw that.
visualize?
Yeah.
Like, if you really believed in that power, it could make you very scared. And I mean, I see the supervillain hero sort of hero's journey where you can go either way on that. If you have a big vision that's too big for you to believe, it can make you the opposite. It make you like an anti-hero. But yeah, poetry is a balance of that. I think it is like it's a shadow light sort of balance that you have to introspectively look at the shadow part sometimes to reassess that it's your perspective, that you can't see the light from. You're turned around and you are shining the light, but you also, by shining light, creating a shadow, you can choose to observe either part of yourself. But it's sort of the metaphoric development I wrote around a lot.
I got a challenge for you.
Of course.
I hardly ever read this poem because I don't know. I like it, but I don't know who I'm trying to reach with this. But in some kind of odd way, I think it's the opposite of what you've been saying. And I was listening to you, and I said, I really had this thought. I wonder what he would think of this poem called The Argument, because the few times I've read it, people have been kind of like, yeah, well, okay, which is all right. It's you get all kinds of reactions, as you probably well know. Anyway, this one's called The Argument, and as soon as I get it under the light properly, okay, here we go. I am not the facts, not the policies. I'm neither expert nor example. I'm not the doer of deeds, be they great or small. I am instead the argument. I stand outside all creeds. I speak by doing nothing to embroil me in the world's endeavors, to sort out who's in charge, or who is wrong, or who is right, or who is godly and who is not, or even posit whatever godly means. I am nothing that anybody really needs because I have chosen not to serve. And yet, I'm anybody's champion, full of time, full of space, full of understanding. I am the argument, pure and simple.
Love that one. Yeah, I read that one actually before we started. That was in this book.
Yes, it was.
Plug. There's your plug right there.
Oh, okay, you caught me. I sometimes will take a good poem and
That's a
put it
good
in
one.
another book just to make.
But yeah, I recognized that when you started reading. I was like, I just read that one, I think. But yeah, that
That's
one
great.
in
That's
your voice,
fabulous.
it adds an extra somberness to it. I think the poetry in the author's voice is very unique. I found a couple CDs at Goodwill that is like I seek to try to hear a lot of the things read by the person that wrote it, because I think it adds that extra that not always, but sometimes hearing it in the original author's voice, then you hear the emotion, even if the words are creatively written to the, like how I try to hide my emotion in my words. I feel like just hearing my words probably does the same thing for other people. You hear a little bit of the emotion or pauses and quivers when I'm reading something, or like you put good pauses between everything, and it accentuated a lot of the statements that I read through rather quickly, because I was like, I'm going to read a bunch of his poems before we talk, and I was reading through it. So when I'm hearing it the second time presented, was definitely a different
Well,
awareness of
as soon as I figure out
the
the
potency.
technology, I put this particular. Well, okay, you got my second book there, but my last one, I wanted to you want to reach as large an audience as you can. So I actually made an audio book of the entire poem. I read all the poems, and it's produced by a young man who does this sort of thing. The problem is that I would have to I'd have to find it again. I'm not sure how to tell people how to access my audiobook, but
Hmm.
I will do that. And just because I think you might find it interesting, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I could see you having an avenue in that realm. There's a guy that I follow from that for some reason in his stories he talks about adamantly not knowing why, but he needed to move to Scottsdale, Arizona. So it's called Our World Within is his channel on YouTube, and his name's Eddie Pinero. I think it's Pinero. And what he does is I think a lot of his stuff may be AI animated. He in the original when I first started watching him, very rarely did he show himself sitting in his studio talking into the microphone. It was more just like whimsical rousings and motivational statements, like statements of science proving the belief sort of concept, and it's just really motivational stuff. But in that sort of same realm, I could see you having a successful YouTube channel of that sorts, where you could just put up poems with like some type of peaceful looking visual and your voice over them. It's a
Yeah,
very big
yeah,
market. It's just figuring out that space for me too. Like I did a lot of YouTube posting in the early 2000s before it was really as popular to do the blog thing. I guess that's what I was doing. I was doing like blogs of myself juggling around the world,
yeah,
and then very rarely it would go into other stuff, didgeridoo or one of my musical instruments things. But yeah, like it never really took off. It still they're out there, but there's not very many views on them. But yeah, if you look up Mike Wise on YouTube, you find a lot of videos of me juggling these things because I travel around the world for it. But
can you do me a favor?
uh-huh.
Because I will admit, um, I've been a very poor host because I haven't mentioned your name once. Not because we didn't meet and not because I didn't really want you to come on the show, and you're fabulous. Obviously you have a lot to offer, but would you pronounce your name just so people can get an idea of who you are?
I go by Mike Wise. Like back in the day when I was doing the juggling thing, like if you find me on YouTube, I was going by Mike Wise the Eclectic, which is still very much my personality, but I dropped the moniker and just go by Mike Wise. It's a first name and it's spelled sort of weird. This is my handle.
Thank you.
That's also you could probably flash the screen and it would send you to my Instagram. That Instagram is my one wheel Instagram though. In the last 4 years after back surgery, even I had an extreme situation where I herniated some lower discs in my spine. I was working as a para educator in a high school with a young man in a wheelchair at the time, and his knees buckled when I was helping him move, and I braced his weight with my arms out, not expecting that to happen because it never happened before. And instantly, I knew I herniated something, and I told the nurse right after something something popped.
Something
And she's
broke,
like,
yeah.
she's like, keep aware of it today throughout the day. By the end of the day, we'll send you to urgent care and stuff. We'll have you checked out. So I made it throughout the day, but yeah, by the end of the day, I was really hurting bad. So I went to urgent care and got checked out. And yeah, it turned out I had herniated L4, L5, L5S1, the disc between those ones, and maybe even one lower, but not discovered at the time or not treated. But yeah, that took me down a peg or two for a while. And then like right after I got through all of the different treatment, we went through a couple different methods that try to like decompress my spine and stretch me out. That didn't work. It's still pain. And like I have a pretty high pain tolerance, but it was still pain. And then they tried like some shots, some epidural shots like they give pregnant ladies. That didn't really help for much more than like a week or a couple days, and it seemed to wear off and it was hurting again. And then they actually went in and they did the laser surgery and fixed the herniation. So some point after that, I got into watching Joe Dispenza because I was really down in the dumps and I was just feeling like I'm broken. I'm 40 plus now and I'm not gonna be able to do my dreams being a break dancer or extreme sports, skateboarding or anything like that. Not gonna be possible. And so I was just sitting around watching breakdancing videos all day long. and not necessarily like stewing as much. I guess it was as studying, but it was stewing too, like just observing something that I might not ever be able to do again. And I
Yeah.
started watching Joe Dispenza stuff, and it got me in a different mindset where I was like, I didn't wake up in the morning and look for where my back was hurting and move my leg and hear that pop, and it's like, yep, I'm still broken. I woke up with a different mindset after that, where I was just like, I need to stretch. Like right now, I'm sitting on an exercise ball because it's become like a regular thing now as a 45-year-old that wants to do extreme sports. That I need to continue my health regimen improvements, and like eating better is a big plus, and just better routine, waking up and doing some exercises before trying to go out and ride around on my one wheel or do whatever, breakdance or some other physical labor. So yeah, just like having that herniation though for a little while, I thought I was broken. I never thought I'd do anything, and what's he called, epigenetics, what he talks about, and how the mind can heal the body and all that stuff got
Yeah.
me right back in that unity mindset. And I was like, this is what I know, this is what I do believe. And like he just goes into it like, oh, you think you believe this or you think you don't believe it, I'm going to show you all the proof, and then you can disbelieve with evidence if you want, but there's no proof against it. It's like there's all this proof for it, in his cases of how we really do have like an ability to create sickness or health by what we obsess about. And I'm obsessive, so like there's just one more thing I could obsess about, and like, all right, let's figure out how to obsess on the right things. And just developing talent like the one wheel talent or this juggling talent just took and like gave me a rhythmic sort of connection. I'm gonna fidget after talking about this. I'm gonna stand up and play with this for a second. But having this rhythm like this is like playing with this has become something that just obsessed my mind. And I was just like, how does this work? Why does this work? And how much better can I do it? So I just kept messing with it until I was figuring out where I really just relax into that flow state. And that playing with this helped my poetry, helped my ability to pick up new skills, just because I'm in the moment so much, I'm not forcing it. So the way you hurt yourself doing any extreme sport is by like releasing the board or releasing the vehicle from yourself and giving up in the process. Like that's how everybody says, like, especially if you do motocross, if you kick the bike out, like 75% more of a chance you're going to hurt yourself than if you just commit to it, deal with the landing with the vehicle and jump off the vehicle and give it up if you're not going to make it. So like a lot of that commit to the landing thing came from finding the flow with this, and like being easier with it, not trying to force it, but just like knowing how much that flow releases this ability to harness energy of sorts. Like it's hard to say like how it's gone across the board for me with the learning juggling into breakdancing, or breakdancing into juggling into
So,
whatever it is.
I gotta intervene here. You had me at breakdancing.
That's interesting.
When you start talking, yeah, I remember not doing it, but seeing breakdancing for the first time, and it just blew my mind. I'm an actor, and I do a fair amount of theater, but um, uh, I like to keep the podcast within an hour, and we've reached that. If you have one more piece, though, I would really love to hear it.
Okay.
And
Yeah. Let me look in my phone, and I'll put one out of this space this time. I have one that's not too long.
okay, let's do that. And
This is like that whole self-contemplative artist one, I believe, just from what I read in the beginning of it. Let's see how it goes. It's contemplating a dark space. This will be a little bit different than the last ones. I'll try to do it with a rhythmic sort of syncopation, because a lot of these are actually rap songs. Do I care for credit, or am I there to get it? In tune with the vibration? Because too soon we lose dedication. What's important is, can we realize that as we rant, our words materialize? We know what we mean, polishing things so nice. Follow the gut, end scene, as drama brings a sacrifice. A dark space is where the stars shine, setting time's pace, lost in the details so fine. Desiring to be right, the message gets left. Questioning insight, its poetic depth. Forgetting to remember or choosing to forget. Friendships are tender, in these words of regret, because we all filter. Sometimes things will not mesh. Balance goes off kilter, falling into the same old mess. Judgment and loss of spirit from the throne, the grudge sent for one to hear it with a moan. Opinions, insult, casting the shade. What's the result? Pissed the bed made, lost the fun, can no longer play. What have we done when the words that we say, so brash and rude, with the intent to harm, a burning cash attitude, so sound the alarm, hanging the man out to dry, missing the flow, a universal plan, missing why in a cycle we grow. A broken record will not spin the same, completely floored, but on the ground begin to take aim. It is love we shoot, projected from our eyes, while hatred will dilute as tears cries. As the tear cries, oh, only a single tear, not many, just one, can no longer sing the praise out of tune. The target is stronger, vibrations raise, aiming too soon. The void of the gap is a divide that separates, annoyed as the button taps applied to frustrate, no longer able to supply, then what gets defined as worth, feeling unstable to deny my purpose on earth. We all must change to continue to evoke in this. It feels strange, like a problem. Oh, we must all change. Oh, when you miss the rhyme word, it makes the whole line mess up.
Yeah, tell me about it.
We all, that's the problem with rhyme. When we all must change to continue to evolve, it is this feeling strange, like a problem never solved. We must work to better how we speak, to come together for one cause, to seek to share compassion. Don't create the victim with a verdict's action stuck in the system, intending to box, thinking we can't communicate, pretending that the talk's not linking a point to debate, mad at the one shadows, fighting the fear, too high for that new low, through though we see unclear. Here we must reflect, looking to pass. We mirror what we collect to break the glass. The lights go off in an emergency state of mind. We fight clocking with urgency, not great in this grind. Yeah, I don't know what, that was a weird one.
I'm a clapper. I can't help myself. Somebody do something good. I just, Mike, I'm gonna cut us off now. I am sincerely hoping that you come back in 2 weeks.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds fun.
And also that I see you at Unity, which I also attend. So anyway, I've got a very clumsy way of ending the show. So hang on. I'm not as technically advanced as you. So a couple of things, if I can figure out. There we go. So you've been watching Celebrating New Poets, and I would like to invite you to go on Facebook and see my New Poets Wednesday postings. And if you have something that you would like to put on either this show or New Poets Wednesday, I am Gary L. Cox at yahoo.com. And my website is garycox.com. Bada boom, bada bing. That's all, folks.
Thanks for having me on.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for coming.
Inspiring support.
Hopefully we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and if any people you know or yourself are interested in a show with a bunch of live funk bands, the show that I'm going to be painting at tonight is at Yucca Tap Room in Tempe, Arizona. It's on Southern and Mill, and it's a free show. It's our company work party, and we've just gathered together a bunch of the people that work for us that are super talented. There's a really good rap duo. There's like I think it's a 9-piece tonight funk band, and then another like 5-piece funk band, a bunch of horns. I'll be trying to break dance at some point, I'm sure, and I'll be trying to paint that picture I was sharing with you earlier, which I have to now go sketch to the canvas, so I feel prepared.
You would have me, except I'm doing a show tonight, so I'll be in what is that place? Anyway, I'll be at the Don Bluth Front Row Theater doing It's a Wonderful Life tonight. But I would,
Awesome.
otherwise, I would love to come and see your show. Actually, you'll probably be doing it again, though, won't you?
It's our Christmas party, so it'll come back around again.
Okay, all right. Well, anyway, it's been a true pleasure, and I hope to have you back again.
Excellent. Yeah, I'd love to come back again. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely.
And probably we'll see you Sunday. I'm gonna keep coming. I think my dad's gonna bounce back and forth between there and Mesa in our transition. But
I
yeah, I
have to
just
come
love the
back. I'm
feel.
a greeter. Yeah, it's my favorite job.
Oh, I'm sure you are great at that job. That's a fun
So,
job too. You get to bring the joy to everybody as they get there. You
yeah,
get to set the joy level
you
as
see
they
a
arrive.
smiling face when you come in, and I got that. I may not have too much other, but I got that. All right.
Oh,
So,
pleasure.
yeah, I'm going to end it now, but God bless.
Yeah.